If I bring AJ back with me, will you teach him too?
You bet. Bring him back.
So for years, people have wanted a new Walking Dead game from Telltale, but there hasn't been a new game since 2018, apart from 2 years ago when Clementine Book One came out, where they basically gave the character and the story power to author and illustrator Tilly Walden. So that assured that at least for a while, the character of Clementine was occupied. But just recently, it was announced that the third and final book will be coming out in June 2025, which means Clementine is now free. This just goes to show that she was only really meant to even be in these books for a couple of years anyway. The way I see it is Skybound were going to make a sequel game with Deck 9, who make the Life is Strange series. It was cancelled, but I still think they would be trying to make a new game. Of course, whether it would be about Clementine or involve her depends almost entirely on how this book ends. I'm not going to go into it too much, but in a nutshell, the author basically had Clementine leave her friends, leave AJ to go on her own little journey because she wants to. It hasn't gone down too well with most people. It's not that the story is bad, just not Clementine. You know, it very much feels like some cold-faced transactional thing, like, yeah, you have the rights to our character in your book, just give her back after. From the world of Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead comes the epic conclusion of Clementine, in which Tilly Walden holds absolutely nothing back. The first. Clementine finally has it all, a safe place to live, just like she did at the end of season 4. A girlfriend and even a cat. Didn't realise she was 60. But nothing lasts forever, clearly. And when Clementine suffers a loss, unlike anything she's ever faced, that'd be pretty big then, like losing her arms. A new mentor called the Gardener offers her a new family and a new way of living, but at what cost? Clementine Book 3 is one of the darkest and most interesting stories I've ever written. I don't imagine that's too hard by the sounds of it. I'm so excited for everyone to be able to be with Clementine as her story comes to a close. I certainly don't want to overanalyze the cover, but it actually has clues to where she will end up at the supposed end of her story, at least in this book. So holds importance in regards to what a game would be about with her or someone she knew. Something that I immediately noticed, because the author's saying something bad's gonna happen to her in this book. If you look at the bottom, the third and fourth walker look to be quite young. Oh, never mind, that one's got a beard. I mean, you could say both, you could interpret that differently, but the third walker looks to be quite young. On the other two book covers, it's just generic walkers. Clementine and all her friends, especially in this book, are young. They're as young as this walker. So I really think this great loss, if someone called the Gardener is gonna take Clementine and give her a new family, is her friends die. Good. They could all die or just one of them die, and that tells her to move on. And she might end up at this community in the back that looks to be behind a waterfall. And again, I don't want to overanalyze this and say that looks like Richmond from A New Frontier. I mean, it does in the way there's buildings. But let's not dither. On the left, there is a lake. Why would they be showing a lake? A boat, perhaps? Is this how she travels or travels back?
And once we get down to Florida, we'll ditch the wheels and I'll make a sailor out of you.
Next stop, the Atlantic.
If you think this author wouldn't touch on Kenny, by the way, she's already touched on Lee and he's dead. And if you've seen my recent video, you know Kenny is probably canonly alive. And by that I mean in a special sort of Spider-Verse way. I do think there is a canon story. My one. I'm joking. I'm not. So obviously not to say that he's going to be in this book because of this lake. And of course you've got to think, would you even want that with how Clementine is in this book? But would that be cool? I think it would be towards the end. Imagine if there's like a Krista or Kenny or Javier appearance and the author has the best redemption ever because she ends the books with Kenny or one of those characters finding Clementine and a new game is announced, or they just make it canon that they are currently together. I really think that's the way she should go. If she sort of fixes Clementine's story, would that not make it so that more people are interested in reading these, you know, finding out about this extra little story Clementine had? Because if she does just come back, it wouldn't be so harmful to make it canon, would it? You might be thinking, okay, so what would another Walking Dead game by Telltale and or Skybound be? I never needed those fatal frontier rumours about Kenny and Javier in 2020. Those rumours could have always been so easily faked and just come from nowhere. I've just always seen these two as so obviously available. I mean, if people liked The New Frontier a bit more, would we have not seen Javier already? Would we have not gotten a spin-off season? A New Frontier Season 2, I guess it could be. A future Frontier, then a Fatal, then a Final.
You're a real charmer. You know that?
Are you really sure you don't want to stay? There's room.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Second chances are in short supply these days. That's what this place can be, if you let it. You're a capable guy, Javi. Change is in the air here.
Who could forget you, Clem? No one who knew you, I guarantee it. Bring him back.
And so the way I see it is, so long as the writers in charge of the games, these Kenny and or Javier, with story still left to tell, or they see them as good as everyone else does, that's where I would see them going in the distant future. They recently released The Expanse, that the next game will be The Wolf Among Us Season 2, Among Us. I would love it if they just did a Walking Dead game like every 2 years, just a nice story, keep the fans of these games happy, while also expanding out, because it is their most popular game. Sure, branch out, but just still do this would be amazing. Would that not be the best business move too? It really does feel like a missed opportunity, because even if it was a matter of just wanting to leave the characters alone, you know, you've done the story, that's where they wanted to leave it, there's still so much they can do. It's in the comic universe of The Walking Dead, but the way that Telltale built on it and made the Telltale Walking Dead world for you to exist in, if they did different stories in it, it would be amazing. So even if it was like a random every 2 years, I would love it. And even then, of course, you've got the comic characters. They did Michonne, could they not do Negan? There's so much they could do. So next year the Clementine books will finish, so she will be somewhat free, and then soon after that, hopefully, The Wolf Among Us Season 2 will be much closer to coming out. I know Telltale's social medias, they've like replied to people saying they're not doing it. Of course they would. They're not going to reveal it in a tweet reply or a TikTok reply, but that's what I think. What do you think? What do you think of these books, and how do you think they will end? And what do you think the next Telltale Walking Dead game could be, if it ever does come out? I recently did a video on Kenny, basically saying how there's one really good way that in your story that I really genuinely think is the canon one, Kenny is alive out there still, and that's what I think could be picked up on. It's basically one big Kenny appreciation video, showing how there is still story left to tell, and he is one of the Walking Dead's best characters by far, and it would be a massive shame if him and others weren't utilised. And I've been thinking of doing a Telltale Walking Dead character tier list. Would you want to see that? Would you want it in this format, or would you want facecam for that? Let me know what you think. Press the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.
Well, we could probably deal with that. We got a train.
That thing's not full of milk, Charles.